Hello, my name is Catherine from SCB Housing, and this is the information session for the one affordable single-family home at 26 Claridge Drive in Worcester. And the purpose of this information session is to give you a little background information on the home. I'll also cover the application, eligibility, and lottery processes and what to expect after the lottery is run. If you're watching this after the fact and you have any questions for us at SCB Housing, please do not hesitate to reach out either by email at info@scbhousing.com or by calling the number that's on your screen here. We're happy to answer any questions that you have either after reviewing this or that have just come up in your review of the marketing materials for this opportunity. So first, just want to give you some background information on who we are. So SCB Housing, we are an off-site affordable housing consultant group. So we're not the developer or the sales team, but we're working with the sales team, and we've been hired by the developer, and we're going to be the ones who are collecting and reviewing lottery applications and determining an applicant's eligibility for the affordable housing program. We're also going to be the company that's running the lottery eventually. So in the initial phases of this process, we're your main point of contact rather than the sales team. But then further along in the process, if you're one of the top households after the lottery, you'll be put in touch with the sales team, and you will be going through some steps with them as well. So the first step in the process is to apply for the lottery, and you're applying for the affordable housing program when you're submitting your lottery application. We will do to SCB Housing. We will do a preliminary review of your application and determine whether or not your household is eligible for the affordable housing lottery based off of the information that you're self-reporting on your application. You do need to submit a mortgage pre-approval with your lottery application for this opportunity. The second step in the process involves actually reserving and purchasing the affordable home. So your opportunity to do that will be if you are the first person on the waiting list, since there's one home. If the first person on the waiting list drops off and it no longer is going to be purchasing the home, we'll move down the waiting list to find a buyer that is qualified. So if you haven't already done so, we encourage you to go to our website at scbhousing.com. If you click on Affordable Housing Opportunities and select I Want to Buy, you'll see that there's a page specific to 26 Claridge Drive, and that includes a downloadable version of the application, a sample deed rider, which will be finalized closer to closing, and an information packet. The information packet contains most of the material I'll be covering during this presentation, and we encourage you to look at that though, because not everything is going to be covered in there. If you're interested in this opportunity, have a look at that info packet. So if you choose to apply for the lottery for 26 Claridge Drive, you're going to need to complete that application, submit the application along with your mortgage pre-approval. You want to send it to us. There's a few different ways you can get it over to us. You can email it and send it as an attachment to your email. You can fax it to us. There's a fax number on the first page of the lottery application. You can send it by regular mail, or if you're in the Needham area, we do have a physical office there at 257 Hillside Ave. There's a drop box there that you could leave the application in. So whichever one of those works best for you, we just encourage you to get your lottery application in early so we can get started on reviewing it. And no supporting documentation is needed at this early stage. You just need that mortgage pre-approval and the lottery application. So you don't need to submit pay stubs or anything yet, but after the lottery, you would be asked to do that if you're one of the top households on the waiting list to move forward in the process. The application deadline is September 28th, and so your applications would need to be delivered or postmarked by that time to be considered. You don't need to be a resident of Worcester to apply for this lottery. There's no preference for households who live in Worcester, so it's for anybody to apply. So the home's going to be sold at an affordable price to a household who has an income at or below 80% of area median income for the Worcester area. So the affordable sales price for this 4-bedroom home is $295,700. The price is significantly lower than comparable homes on the market rate homes in the Worcester area. From what I saw, market rate homes in the area are going for between about $350,000 and $500,000. And so this home is being sold for that affordable price, and it's only being marketed to households who have incomes that qualify for the affordable housing program. So the affordable price follows a formula for the affordable housing program. So it concerns the area median income for Worcester, and the AMIs are the amounts that the Department of Housing and Urban Development, so the federal HUD agency, releases each spring. So this home it's been completely renovated. So it's in an established neighborhood, and it's been completely renovated inside and out with new kitchen, bathroom, drywalls, flooring. There's a covered carport outside. There's also additional driveway and street parking. And of course, in an established neighborhood, there's that private yard. There's an unfinished basement. It does have central heating and cooling. And this is a photo of the refinished kitchen there. So since this is an affordable home, it's going to have what's called a deed rider filed along with the deed at the time of purchase. So that ensures that the home remains affordable, even if the owner at some point chooses to sell it. So just a quick overview, a couple points on what the deed rider is going to say. That's something that would be completed at closing, but to give you an understanding of what that does, the deed rider is going to limit the amount for which you can eventually resell the property. So this opportunity really isn't for you if you're looking to buy, flip a home, resell it within a year or two. It doesn't mean you won't be able to make a profit, but it does need to be resold to an affordable buyer. So you might have some return on investment, but you shouldn't expect the same appreciation that maybe market rate homes are seeing. And there's a formula for the resale price that's based on AMI as well. The deed rider also says that the affordable home needs to be your primary residence. So generally, you can't rent it out as an investment property, like an Airbnb or a VRBO. And then finally, if you'd like to refinance or make capital improvements on the home, like a new roof or a finished basement or whatever it is, the state agency that oversees this affordable housing program would need to approve of that. So again, the home has been completely refurbished, so those types of improvements likely wouldn't be applicable for many years, but just want to make sure you know that the state would be involved in those kind of upgrades. So I mentioned that the mortgage pre-approval is required to be submitted along with your lottery application. So after you reviewed that information packet, we suggest that you either copy or rip out page 7 of the info packet. And I have that on my screen here now. So page 7 has the mortgage pre-approval standards. And we suggest that you take that to the bank if you are looking to be pre-approved for a mortgage. And the reason we do that is because we want to make sure that your mortgage product, the mortgage product that you're offered by the bank, meets the necessary standards. So if you bring a copy of a sample deed rider, which is also on the website listing as a PDF, so you'll see that sample deed rider. And if you bring these mortgage pre-approval standards, they should have the information that they need. Some of the pre-approval standards can be problematic for some lenders. So certain loans won't accept the terms of the deed rider or the affordable housing restrictions. So for example, the loan has to have a fixed rate throughout the term of the mortgage. It also can't be an FHA or a VA loan. Those types of loans don't accept the affordable restrictions. So you don't want to be in a situation where you've been pre-approved, but that's because the bank wasn't clear on this being an affordable housing opportunity. And, you don't want them to back out at the time that you're trying to get your mortgage commitment. So along those same lines, you can choose any bank or lender that you would like, but we do like to mention that in our experience, it's been difficult for applicants to successfully close with Bank of America as a lender. So we recommend that you don't use Bank of America for your mortgage or pre-approval because it seems that their mortgage products aren't suited for affordable homes. But with that being said, any lender that you want to use, we just strongly recommend that they have some experience with affordable housing. There is this link in the page 7 of the information packet that I mentioned with this mortgage pre-approval page. If you go to this website here, mhp.net, this is an agency, the Mass Housing Partnership, that has a lot of resources on affordable housing, but they have a list of lenders who are familiar with affordable housing, and there's a lot of them. There's dozens of them listed there throughout the state with experience. It's not just limited to certain banks or anything. So you want to take a look there if you're not really sure where to start. And then I should mention too that the mortgage pre-approval states that you must provide a down payment of at least 3% of the purchase price. Half of that, so 1.5%, must come from your own funds. So your mortgage can end up being up to 97% of the purchase price. So keep that in mind as well. So in terms of who's eligible for the affordable housing program, there's 4 eligibility requirements. These are listed in the information packet as well, but just to go over them with you, the first is that everyone in the household must qualify as what's called a first-time home buyer. So there's exceptions to that I'll be discussing in just a few minutes, but even households who qualify for an exception need to sell their home if they own one now. So before closing on the home at 26 Claridge, you would need to have taken yourself off the deed. And we'll talk about the exceptions in just a minute. The second eligibility criteria is that households need to have incomes and assets that are below the maximum allowable limits, which the income limits are on your screen now, and the asset limit is there as well, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. You have to be pre-approved for a mortgage, which I've mentioned, and households can't have financial interest in the development or be a related party. So these homes, if you know the developer, if you work for the sales team, for example, you wouldn't be eligible for the lottery. So to circle back on the first eligibility criteria to explain more in terms of the first-time home buyer requirement, all households are considered first-time home buyers if they haven't, within the last 3 years, owned a home. So that includes through joint ownership. If you were, owned a home with your spouse and you no longer do, you still would have owned that home within the last 3 years and not be considered a first-time home buyer. The exceptions to it, though, there's 5 exceptions, and they're listed in the information packet. I'll just highlight the top 3 that we sometimes see. So the first is someone that's referred to by the program as a displaced homemaker. So that's someone who hasn't worked outside the home for years because they work to care for the home or for children. They owned a home with their partner or spouse, but they no longer own that home due to a divorce or legal separation. So they're no longer on the home's deed, but they owned a home within the last 3 years. That's an exception to the rule. The second exception is a single parent with at least joint custody of children that are now no longer on the deed because of a family breakup. The third exception is a age-qualified household. So that applies to households with a member that is 55 and older. So if that person sold a home recently, within the last 3 years, to purchase an affordable property, they could potentially qualify for that first-time home buyer exception. So like I mentioned, if you qualify, you or anybody in your household qualifies for that exception, or any of those exceptions, you do still need to sell the home before buying an affordable home. So that might mean, if you're in the middle of a divorce, it would need to be settled by the time you are buying the affordable home. And so the maximum income limits that are listed on your screen, just to quickly go over those. So if you're a one-person household, you would need to make below $73,750 to qualify. This is a gross annual income for your household. That is everybody living in the home. If you're a 4-person household, for example, your total household income would need to be below $105,350. So as you can see, it's by the number of persons in your household. Oops. There's also an asset limit at $75,000. So if you have more than $75,000 in assets, when we're doing your review, you wouldn't be eligible for this opportunity either. So just keep those in mind. I'll mention a little bit more about how we count your income and what qualifies as countable income. So as I mentioned, you don't need to submit any of your supporting income information yet in order to get into the lottery, but you will need to submit your pay stubs, benefit statements, that sort of thing after the fact. So just to give you a basic overview of how we calculate your income. So income for this program is counted as a projection of your income over the next 12 months for all household members. So that includes, bonuses, overtime, more sporadic income that you may have. So the only exceptions to the total household income is minors. So if you have a child who's 16 and they're working, we're not going to count their wages towards your total household income. And if you have a dependent full-time student in the household, maybe you have a 20-year-old college student who's working, it's only the first $480 of their annual wages that would be counted. So most of those are excluded as well. Everybody else, though, we do need to count 100% of the projected income. And the income must be the gross income. So the program says that we need to count the gross income before taxes. So many of us are not taking home 100% of what is on our paycheck because of health insurance and paying into Social Security and that sort of thing, and your taxes, but the program does say that it is the gross amount that we're calculating or using towards our total household income calculations. And then sometimes there are households who have income circumstances that are unique. So if you're a self-employed, if you're self-employed and you are not receiving the same amount every week, like a consistent paycheck would be, then we may need more information from you. So if you are self-employed, for example, we need a profit and loss statement, which provides and supporting documentation from you about your business, and we have a sample profit and loss statement for you to complete if you don't have that in your own records. If you're working per diem, for example, we may need to ask for more pay stubs from you to make a projection of what your income is over the next 12 months. So in general, any income that you have been making, we need to assume that you're going to continue making it going forward unless we have, definitive documentation stating that you're no longer earning that income source. So for example, if your tax returns are showing that you had 2 employers last year and now you're only reporting 1, we would need to have some sort of information from that former employer confirming that you're no longer with them. So when you're filling out your application, just make sure that you're filling out all of the income that is coming into your household. So not just wages, but if you have, anybody who is getting a Social Security benefit, who's living with you, unemployment, pension, benefits, whatever it might be. And to apply for this lottery, there's no minimum household income requirements, but of course, in order to apply for or qualify for a mortgage, you need to meet the lender or the bank's requirements in order to get that mortgage pre-approval. So just keep that in mind. And then in terms of assets, like I mentioned, a household can't have more than $75,000 in assets at the time of their application, and that includes any funds that may have been gifted to you for a future down payment. So you would need to write any gifts that has added to your assets on your application. Cash that is in checking and savings accounts, CDs, the net amount of your 401k or 403b, any retirement accounts like that, even any balances that are in your Venmo or PayPal accounts, we do need to ask for verifying information for those accounts. You might think it's a little strange that we're going to be counting money that you have tied up in retirement accounts because some of you may not be accessing those funds for many years, but the program does require us to do that because you could, in theory, withdraw funds with a large penalty from those accounts. So it's going to be the post-penalty amount that or the net cash value of the asset that we would be counting towards your total asset amount for the family. So if you have a retirement account, we would be asking you to get a letter from the financial institution that holds your retirement account, and they're going to be able to estimate the post-penalty amount that you would be able to get if you liquidated that account. Any income or interest generated by your assets will be counted as income. So maybe you're making, a couple $100 in interest. That will be going towards your total household income as well. It doesn't usually throw things off too much because most people are not earning a whole lot of interest in their assets. All right, so I mentioned if you're interested, you want to apply as early as possible, get the process started. We'll review your application. We'll contact you if any information appears to be missing or if you have forgotten to submit your mortgage pre-approval. And if you're found to be eligible for the lottery, you'll be sent a lottery application number in the form of a series of numbers. So that's just meant to be an anonymous identifier. If you're the very first person to submit and be approved for this lottery, you will have a application number of A.001. So that's the number that will be called during the lottery. Again, it's just meant to be an anonymous identifier, so your name isn't called, and it's not a ranking of any sort. So on your application, you will have indicated your household type as either 1, 2, 3, or 4. And all household types can apply for this lottery, but type 4 households are going to have priority because it's a 4-bedroom home. So that means that all type 1, 2, and 3 households are going to be behind type 4 households on the waiting list that's established after the lottery. So there's additional details on the household composition and the types listed on the lottery application. It's also on page 8 of the information packet. And you'll be able to identify your household as one of those household types. Sometimes people ask, this is a little bit off topic, but sometimes people ask what the tax rate is on this home. So the home price being $295,700, I can estimate that for you because the 2026 Worcester tax rate is $13.29 per thousand. So the estimated annual taxes on this home is estimated off of the affordable housing price. And so per year in taxes, it would be about $3,920 right now for the annual taxes on the home. All right, so the lottery itself is going to be held on October 13th at 6 p.m. It's very much in the same format as this, where it's a Zoom call, and I'll be screen sharing the lottery happening. And the waiting lists are created shortly after the lottery, and it's only one waiting list in this case for the one home. And you'll be able to see at that point if you are one of the top households on the waiting list, and you'll be moving forward to reserve the unit, secure a mortgage, and buy the home. So every lottery number will be drawn in that lottery. Sometimes you think, there's one home, they're only going to draw one lottery application number, but that's not the case here because the first person chosen, again, might not qualify or may not move forward in the process. So we pick everybody's number, and that allows us to establish a waiting list for the home, and it creates an order of priority. So if a type 3 household is drawn first, for example, they're still going to be behind the type 4 households on the waiting list. So all households that were entered into the lottery could be found ineligible, and your placement on the waiting list would moved up. So if your number is drawn later in the lottery, you shouldn't lose hope of being able to purchase the home. And after the lottery, like I said, we'll be sending the waiting list out to everybody. You'll see it in your email, and you'll be able to figure out if you're going to be if you're going to be the household to move forward, and get in touch with the sales team to move forward in the process. So once the waiting list is established, you will be asked to submit all of your income, tax, and asset information to SEB Housing, because at that point, we will be confirming your eligibility for the affordable housing program. Because remember, when you submitted your lottery application, you didn't submit your pay stubs or anything like that. So you'll have about 7 days to get that information into us. Most applicants don't submit a 100% complete application on the first try, and that's fine. There's a couple of reasons for that. The first being that there's just a lot of information required from you. And then also there could be questions that come up if we're looking at your assets or whatever it is, and we have questions on some deposits. So you're encouraged to prepare all of your information, send it in if you have questions, or if we have questions for you, we'll work with you. So if you're ultimately found eligible for the lottery, for the program, after we do the lottery, if you have submitted all of your income information into us and you've been found eligible by SEB Housing, The next step in the process is for SCB to send your file to the state department that oversees the affordable housing program. So in this case, it's the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, and they will then do a file review and give us the green light if you're able to move forward in the process. Once they've reviewed the application and approved it, the process becomes a lot more similar to what you'd be doing if you were purchasing a market rate home. We encourage everybody, once you've been approved by SCB and by the state, if you decide to hire an attorney, you can do that. They can navigate through the process with you. We encourage you to do that. It's a big decision, obviously, and we want to make sure that you understand everything and are well represented. But don't do that until you've been approved by both SCB Housing and the state. So once you have that approved application from the state, you will be put in touch with the developer, the sales team, and you'll schedule a time to tour the home. And you will complete their reservation agreement and put down a $500 refundable deposit. When you're reserving the home, you're given about 10 business days to sign the purchase and sale agreement and put down the required 1.5% with the purchase and sale, minus that $500 that you've already paid when you reserved the unit. So the P&S agreement would include certain agreed upon contingencies and a closing date, and that's one of the final steps in the process of buying a home. So you'd be close to the finish line there. Once that P&S is signed, you'll then go back to the lender to get your mortgage commitment at that point. A lot of the banks kind of have different processes, but generally everybody's going to be looking for all of the documentation that you have up until this point, like the purchase and sale agreement, the deed rider that I mentioned. There's a sample deed rider on our website with this lottery info, with the Claridge Street listing, and they'll do an appraisal of your home. So all of that is coming towards the end of the process. Households for this affordable housing lottery have to remain eligible for the program up until the time of closing. So about 3 to 4 weeks prior to your closing date, we'll do a final review of your finances and taxes and all of that. We might ask for updated pay stubs, your mortgage commitment letter, bank statements, and we'll forward that final package over to EOHLC, the state, again, for their final review. So there's kind of 2 reviews going on, one at the start of the process and one to confirm that you've maintained eligibility before we allow you to purchase the home. So once both agencies, again, have approved your information and confirmed that you're still eligible for the affordable housing program, you can move towards closing. Once you've closed on the home, you can move in. There's no future income and asset eligibility reviews. And, if you have if you get a new job, next year after you purchase the home, that's fine. You don't need to maintain income eligibility as long as you're living in the home. That about covers what I wanted to get through from the information packet. You can find the lottery application for 26 Claridge Drive on our website, along with the information packet and that sample deed rider that I've been referencing. And again, if you're watching this after the fact, please let us know if you have any questions by contacting SCB Housing at info@scbhousing.com or at the 617 number that's on your screen here. So we look forward to getting your application, and I hope you have a good evening. Good night.